we often don't know or ever know the impact that we will have inside of this lifetime. And that can be a really challenging thing for the ego. You know, the ego wants to know, will this matter? Welcome, bienvenue, bonjour to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. For women who desire to awaken their heartfelt desires, trust themselves fully, and connect with their soul's purpose through beauty. On y va. Let's go. Hello, bonjour. Welcome to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. I invite you to, if you are not aware or if you haven't yet checked us out on YouTube, to go do that. So we have, I think for the past couple of months now, we have also been streaming our podcasts on YouTube. So if you would like that avenue, it's super fun to kind of see, feel, obviously, whatever works best for you. If you're listening to the podcast just in audio only and that's your vibe and that's what feels good, awesome. If you want to participate in a different way and see us inside of the visual effect, go check us out on YouTube. All right, so let's open with that. How are you? How are you? Let's just close our eyes for a minute and actually ask that question from such a beautiful heart space and slow down to listen. Breathing in, slowing down, feeling the physicality, your body, placing your hand on your heart if that feels congruent to you, and just really slowing it down. How are you? And feeling that response inside of your physical body. Moving into your mental awareness. How are you? Again, receiving a breath and really slowing down and listening. Moving into the emotional awareness. How are you? Sometimes just even asking that question inside of our emotionality can be so tender. So if emotions start to move and arise for you, I encourage you to allow them. Gifting yourself permission to feel whatever may be right on the surface or underneath the surface. And finally, breathing into how are you spiritually? Do you feel a closeness? Do you feel a oneness? Do you currently experience any kind of separation or gap? And are you longing for a deeper intimacy inside of this space? So how are you? Who knew it was such a loaded question, right? How are you? Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, how are you? If that opening, 444 when I'm recording this. I've been seeing that a lot lately. Yeah, here we are. So I encourage you, if that line of questioning feels powerful to you, to encourage for the rest of the weekend, and as long as it serves you, to slow down and ask yourself these questions. And yes, the potency in the asking, absolutely. The potency in the listening. You know, oftentimes we will ask a question and we just move on to the next, or we won't ask the question fully because we're afraid of the response. So really gifting ourselves permission to listen, to trust that whatever comes forward is congruent and in alignment. So I really do mean when I ask you, how are you? I really mean it. but more so for you to ask that to yourself, like, how am I in these spaces in my life? Currently, right now, we are leading FemRiche. I originally launched this program in 2022, and we're bringing it back. And inside of FemRiche, we look at the quadrants of health, wealth, beauty, and love, and ask these similar questions like, how am I inside of these quadrants, and bringing through that what I just shared with you, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. How am I operating inside of these quadrants? So it's a beautiful multi-dimensional way to look at things in my experience. So see if that serves you today. As I was feeling into what to bring forward today, a couple of things. So we are getting close to our 100th episode inside of the Beautiful Soul Led Life podcast. And I'm really moved by this. So I want to start by the gratitude for all of you who have been listening, all of you who have shared with me the impact that this has had on your life in subtle and maybe not so subtle ways. And we often don't know or ever know the impact that we will have inside of this lifetime. And that can be a really challenging thing for the ego. You know, the ego wants to know, will this matter? Will I matter? Will this matter? And if the answer is yes, and you can prove it to me, then it will be worth it. And we have a tendency to hold back our gifts, our creation, our desires without that guarantee in life. And when we can come from a space of like, I have no idea if this will matter to anyone else, but it matters to me. And that's been incredibly freeing for me in my life. That permission of, well, it matters to me, and it matters enough that the aliveness that I receive inside of it is worth it. That's worth it. My son, the day before yesterday, he spent, I think, 5 hours on his math. And he came upstairs and he was like, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm so angry. I just spent 5 hours and I still don't understand. I should have just gone to, it was senior night for the lacrosse team was having senior night, and he had this choice of, do I stay and study my math or do I go to the senior night? And so he attempted to do both. And his agreement with himself was, I will study until I understand it, and then I'm going to go to the game. After 5 hours, he still didn't understand it, and he missed, quote unquote, right? He missed going to the game. So he came upstairs very upset. And part of his feeling in that moment, which I know we can all relate to, is like, I wasted my time. I wasted my energy. Like, I didn't get what I wanted. Like, all this that we can all deeply, deeply relate to. And yesterday he came upstairs and he was like, do you know what happened? I did the whole thing and I didn't realize that it wasn't even time to do it yet. He allowed himself the opportunity to have the fullness of the experience, and he was a little early. He didn't even need to do what he did because the test wasn't until tomorrow. Actually, I think he went in early today. And anyway, what we were sharing with him and what he came to understand and feel inside of himself was the truth that nothing's ever wasted, right? It was what felt most congruent to him at that time. And wherever any of us choose to focus our time, our energy, as long as it's in alignment with our values, nothing's ever wasted. And I would say, even if in hindsight we say, oh goodness, that wasn't in alignment with my values, when we can come from that space of nothing's ever wasted and receive the value of whatever it is that's being moved through us, it's a win. It's a win-win-win. So see how that served you. What I want to move into today, given this understanding inside of myself of nothing's ever wasted and the simplicity in what I'm valuing in my life right now, because this is for me that space of fulfillment. So just as we were saying a minute ago, just as I was sharing with you a minute ago, that as long as something makes us feel alive, as long as we're in that creation energy, then it's worth it. It's valuable. It's nothing's ever wasted, ever. And especially from that space of like, this is what makes me feel alive. There's such a simplicity in that for me. that place, instead of searching, seeking, chasing the what will be worth it, what result feels worth it to me, instead of looking through life in that lens, such a simplicity of, does it make me feel alive? And can I allow that value to be such a priority that the rest is just icing? And so a core component in that for me in my life at this particular stage and season is simplicity. Simplicity. Like, I find so much value inside of this. My youngest just turned 18. Our middle, I say oldest for Dom, but the kids, since they were little, would pull on my sleeve and say, Mom, Mason's the oldest. So Dominic's the oldest inside this physical world, but our middle boy, which is so funny to relate to him that way. And I don't know if how he would feel about that. He is about to be 21. And I feel this really gorgeous unraveling of anything that feels complex in my life, anything that my ego has over attached to, of like, oh, let me make myself really busy or really complicated, or just so it looks good on the outside to myself or my ego or how I feel the world might receive it. And so something came through that I want to share with you around this. And as I do, I encourage you to consider looking at your life through this lens, where you may be overly attached to the complexity of a situation, of a conversation, of a platform, of anything, where it's feeling like the harder it is, the more complex it is, the more it's worth it. And consider, like, what if this was simple? What might be a way to simplify this? And if I allowed my energy to be congruent and in alignment with the frequency of simplicity, if I valued that, because we've really been taught, most of us as a society, as a culture, as a collective consciousness, that simplicity isn't as valuable, that it has to be hard, it has to be complex. Like if you take business, for example, it's like the 342 step funnel must be better than just like, here's a link. If our minds believe that, sure, that can be congruent. But if we consider valuing something different, watch what happens. So inside of this, I have been feeling into something that I thought would be really fun. And that's the other component. It's like the simplicity and the joy of it, the fun of it. It's like, why? For the sake of beauty. Why? Because it's fun. Why? Because I feel like it. Like, these are the answers that feel most congruent to me at this particular point in my journey, in my life. So I decided to do something that I thought would be really fun. And that is that next week, I decided to do something called the 4-day runway. And this might be valuable to some of you who are entrepreneurs. It may also be valuable to you, even if you're not, just as an insight to how I create, that may give you a greater level of permission to just go for it because you want to, because you like it, because it feels fun, whether it's the way you decorate your home, whether it's what you choose to wear in your wardrobe, whether it's what it is you choose to offer inside of your business. It really can be congruent across anything. I love, and I feel this is true for all of us. It's like, we're here to create. We're creators. It's not like, is this going to work? Therefore, I will attempt. This is being birthed through me. This feels fun. This allows me to feel alive. This connects me with the truth of creation energy. And from there, it's like, okay, cool, let's go. I was asked recently on a podcast a couple of weeks ago that hasn't aired yet, like, how have you created what you've created from the perspective of monetary wealth? And what I shared was, none of it's been logical. Like, none of it. There is no, for me, and I'm not saying a blueprint or a black and white structure doesn't work. I'm sure it does. I'm sure there are many, many examples of that working. For me, where I find the most joy and the most fun is outside of logic. Like, how can I play? What feels cool? What feels fun? So as this example, I was in this energy this week, knowing that Le Club which is launching and opening. It's already launched. Our first day of the Look Club is May 3rd. If you haven't heard about the club, this is the behind the scenes reveal of my book, which I haven't yet shared the name of. It will first be shared inside of Look Club. This is a behind the scenes reveal of the book, chapter by chapter, for 40 weeks before it's released to the public. Even this is an example of like, it just felt fun. It felt so good. It felt congruent inside of my soul. It wasn't like, oh, I've seen this specific way to launch a book and it looks like this, so I need to do it that way in order for it to be successful. That was not how it was created. It was, you know what sounds fun? You know what sounds cool? Do you know what sounds real? Do you know what feels so intimate to me? Knowing that for the past 9 years, I've poured myself into this book. I mean, I went places that I did not think I would go. I went places inside the book with the voice inside of me of, don't worry, you can remove this. Don't worry, you can erase this chapter. Like that kind of all-in energy. So for me, it felt really beautiful and congruent to have an intimate walk with the women who have either been a part of this journey in Elegant Femme for over a decade, or even women that may have just met me and been introduced to Elegant Femme yesterday of like, this, there's something here for me and I want to walk with the unfolding of this. Not only my story, that's a limited view of it. It's our story as women walking into the restoration of the feminine and the masculine in union. That's what this is about. So opened up the club inside of our beautiful atonement soiree and had a few levels to it that feel super, super yummy and gorgeous and just real simple, really simple. So as we're moving towards that and opening that, like, I gotta tell you, there are parts of me that are like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. What am I doing? Parts of me that are, you know, based in the illusion of fear of like, oh my gosh, this feels so big, I want to run. But the bigger part of me, like, yeah, it's time. Let's go. Like arm in arm, let's go. Let's honor this together. So another part of that for me is allowing it to be a big deal, you know? Not needing it to be a big deal. Not like, oh gosh, which certainly my ego was very attached to, of like, this book has to be a New York Times bestseller and this has to be the biggest thing you've ever done. The ego loves extremes, right? The, oh my gosh, it has to be a big deal. It has to be the biggest thing ever. And the swinging pendulum of like, okay, if I don't have a guarantee that it's going to be the biggest thing ever, then I'm going to hide and I'm going to not even try, right? The ego has these two extremes that operate anywhere the ego's playing in that realm. So not that it has to be a big deal, and also not allowing it to be, like letting myself go all in with the allowing it to be a big deal for me, allowing myself to see myself and to witness myself inside of this conversation and to really show up in the fullness of who I am. So an idea came forward. And again, this is an example for you of creative energy that may serve you, that may support you, that may inspire you, and also the simplicity with which we can operate inside of this frequency, because it is obviously available to all of us. It is who we are. We are creators. We are. Creation equals joy, equals fulfillment, equals life, right? I believe. So the other day I was in the kitchen yesterday. And I was like, oh gosh, we're getting close to the opening of the club. And I want to allow this to be a big deal. I want to really feel my own ramp up towards this. Not just Le Club as the ramp up for the release of the book, which is happening, but also the ramp up for the ramp up, like the ramp up for Le Club. So I was playing in the kitchen the other day and I was like, you know, it'd be kind of fun and cool. Like if we did a runway to the opening of Le Club. And this is literally how I create. This is not me sitting down like super serious and intense in front of the computer of like, okay, how do I make this successful? This is me dancing in the kitchen, which is on right now. I have French music on in the background. It's usually much louder than this. Dancing in the kitchen, doing the dishes with like, oh, what would be fun? What would be cool? This is the energy of creation for me. Super simple. And I'm like, oh, runway. And if you know anything about me, you know I love fashion. We have our Terra Paris fashion label, which is going to be opening and dropping some new things in May for Mother's Day. So I love the idea of a runway. We've had 2 runway shows in Paris. So the runway for me, I was like, okay, could either be the runway of like a plane, right? That taking the takeoff, which I love too, like the takeoff, or it could be like the runway, like the catwalk. And I actually texted my designer this morning and I was like, I'm thinking these 2 things. And she's like, oh, I love the plane idea. And I was like, yeah, but like the runway, like the visibility of the runway. I really dig this. And I sent her some pictures and she's like, okay, I get it. Let's play. This is literally how I create things. And I was feeling into, okay, the 4-day runway. What feels so juicy? And this is where I really, for myself, needed to watch my ego in exactly what I'm sharing with you. That my ego was wanting to make it complex. Like, how can this feel like so important, like so big, so different? And inside my heart space was like, this is so simple, Tara. So simple. The 4-day runway leads into the club, and day 1 is the context. Day 2 is the indie. Day 3 is the Frenchie. Day 4 is the New Yorker. And I will tell you, in all transparency, I really wanted to argue with this. My ego was like, this doesn't feel special enough, which is almost laughable when I say it out loud, because everything inside of Elegant Femme has been birthed this way. My events that I used to do, if you were ever at one of the first Elegant Femme events, please let me know. We did the Elegant Femme integration. We did EFI 1, 2, 3, which was a day for the indie, a day for the Frenchie, a day for a New Yorker. That's how it was. We dedicated each day to the event to one of the femme types. And then those women that were in VIP moved into a more intimate setting with me where we had an implementation day. So simple. So simple. And I'll give you like a little insight into my ego, which was arguing with this of like, oh, well, it's just, that's too easy. No one cares. That people have heard you talk about indie Frenchie New Yorker before. It doesn't matter. That's not like big enough, spicy enough, complex enough. And I sat with myself like, oh, this is good. This is good. Because for me to surrender to a new level of simplicity and potency inside of the femme types is the exact runway I'm requiring to move into the club and into the book. We forget the power in simplicity. We forget the monumental movement that takes place with just a subtle degree shift of depth. We want to wrap our heads like into like, it's so complex, it's so different, it's so special. And I feel like when we remove the illusion of something needing to be special and complex and different in order for it to be valuable, in order for it to be potent, I feel like that's where we're like, ooh, we're on this sacred vein of purity. So I would like twofold right now offer you the invitation to join us. It's going to be free. The 4-day runway is going to be free. Le Club is not. Le Club is a paid opportunity when you're with me for 40 weeks inside of the reveal of this, which we're happy to share with you if that's something that you want to go deeper in. Regardless, this idea of the 4-way runway, certainly, yes, it will lead into Le Club in all transparency. Like, I love being open about that conversation. And even if you're not called into Le Club, the way I invite you to feel into the 4-day runway is this runway for wherever it is you're being called. We are going to have a specific opportunity for you to step deeper into your desires throughout the 4 days together. Again, writing on the foundation of the context and intention, the opening of the indie, the opening of the Frenchie, and the opening of the New Yorker. For me, this power of 3, which at some point I will do a power of 3 masterclass. It's been on my list of things, but it just doesn't have the juice that I know I require to have yet. Yet still, the power of 3 is the underlying current of everything that I've created inside of Elegant Femme. So twofold. If you would like to join us for the 4-day runway, we're going to put the link here for you. It will be free for the 4 days. It will be yummy. It will be this gorgeous dance of movement and relaxation, which I really love this in my life because there's a simplicity to that natural, organic unfolding for us in our lives. Movement and relaxation, movement and rest. I love this. So we'll put that information down there below. And the second intention inside of sharing this with you is for you to look at your own life and see where you may be overcomplicating things. Anything. Maybe you want to step into a different place with your body image or your relationship or your business, like any place where you might be buying into the illusion that it has to be complex in order for it to be powerful, in order for it to be valuable. So take a look at that for yourself and also see if you are residing in the state of creation when you are asking for these new up levels of expansion in your life around anything. Ask yourself, in addition, am I residing in the state of creation? And if not, where might that be more available to me where I can trust in the potency of my own creation? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you are just enjoying a gorgeous week, that you're honoring the depth of who you are and where you're being called. And yeah, just a reminder for all of us that we are definitely in this together. I love you. I'll see you soon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Merci for listening to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. I would love if this message served you, that you support it and share it with other women who might benefit from really having their lives in balance with their femme types. And if you can leave a comment, do a review. I love reading every single one of them. And I would adore if you could take a snapshot of yourself wherever you listen to this episode and post it on social media. My Instagram is elegantfemme1, and I'd love to see you, share you, and just celebrate with you as you are moving into creating, experiencing, and claiming your own beautiful soul-led life.